listening to WCHE Westchester, 95.3 FM, 1520 AM, and online at 953wche.com.
Numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
What you're about to hear may not be seen on TV. It's time for another episode of All Politics Are Local with your host, Barry D.
Welcome to another episode of All Politics Are Local with Barry D. Thank you for coming back. We're building listenership across the county. Why? Because I'm talking about the things that aren't being talked about in the media. And today, it's no different. We've got a couple guests on to talk about some things happening in the area. One's a recap, one's something new. And then we also have Rodney Simon in, who is running for representative in Chester County. So, new segment that we started last week, 5 Minutes with Jack. Little update on that, little recap for him. Jack worked with me many years ago, and I asked him to come back to do a little 5 Minutes with Jack thing once again. And he agreed to do it, came out of retirement for me. So we're going to go over to him. He's got 5 minutes with Jack, and Jack talks about what Jack wants to talk about. So with that in mind, what do you say we get to him? You ready? Here we go. All right, Jack, you're on the line. You got your 5 minutes with Jack where you can talk about anything you want, so go ahead.
Very happy 4th of July weekend to you and everybody. And as you say, all politics are local. So less than 30 miles from where we sit today was the execution of the Declaration of Independence, the birth of our country, where 56 men at an average age of 44 years decided that they would pledge their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor. The Continental Congress at the time believed that the population was split into thirds, where a third believed in independence, a third were against it, and a third were neutral. July 4th, the day we commemorate this independence, again, was the birth of a nation where words such as patriotism, freedom, and liberty are held dear, where love of country, self-sacrifice for the good of others carry tremendous weight. I wonder, Barry, at this point, just over 8 generations ago, if we should now start considering, instead of commemorating, that we should consider memorializing independence. Of course, from independence led the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the essence of how government would be run, a pact formed between government and a civil society, where the government powers were enumerated to where they do their job and the people would follow laws to be self-governed. Later, as stated in the Gettysburg Address, a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Today, every politician swears an oath to uphold the Constitution and its laws. Sadly, Barry, I don't think our civil servants honor that oath anymore. It's a mere formality for them to gain power. I see our fundamental rights being hollowed out. Of course, from this, there's a danger because people's voices must be heard, and the government can't be allowed to run roughshod over our unalienable rights. We must, as a people, demand and educate our children, where every citizen must read, learn, and understand our founding documents, from the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Gettysburg Address, and the Emancipation Proclamation. Failure to understand the genesis of our history will surely lead to its demise. Barry, I want to close and say, I do have hope and believe in America, that we are a good and resilient people, a moral and generous people.
Jack, a lot of people sacrificed everything they had. You know, John Hancock, the giant signer of the Declaration of Independence, I think he did that because he was so PO'd, because he had no interest in any of that. He had a great smuggling operation going on, and then the British shut him down. And when that happened, he had nothing left. So like Janis Joplin, he said, you know, freedom's just another word for nothing left to lose. Give me that pen. And he just, I mean, do you think the other people that had to sign the Declaration of Independence were like, hey, listen, Hancock, now we all have to write on the outer margins thanks to you?
Certainly, he was saying something there with that large signature.
The veracity.
So much so, everyone says, put your John Hancock there, without understanding why he probably did it for the reasons that you outlined. That smuggling operation was a huge revenue source for him.
That's right. And once that was gone, he figured, well, you know what? The British kind of worked with me before, and now they don't. So I guess I have to go to the other side to defend myself because I've got nothing left. You know, a lot of these people, they did this hoping that in the future that people would follow along. And it was a ridiculous idea of this great experiment where people run the government, where they're the ones that tell the government officials what to do instead of it being top down. And it seems now, Jack, that it's more the other way around, right? They're nice to us the last 6 months before they need your vote, but then the other, 2, 4, or 6 years, they couldn't give a rat's about what you have to say. They only need it for that 6 months prior, and they go, remember, I'm a nice guy. I'm working hard for you.
I certainly agree, Barry. And it seems throughout history that they used to tolerate us. I think now more than ever, they have a disdain for us, that we're in the way of what they truly want to do, that they know better than us, the experts and the elites. They know what we should do, even circumventing things to ensure that their will is done, certainly not the will of the people.
While there's countries out there that are trying to go the other way, I think we're slipping more into giving up our freedoms every day. I find it frightening that this happens, right down to freedom of speech. You know, you have freedom of speech as long as you agree with what they say. And this is a problem. Now, there would be people that would disagree with both you and I on this, and that's fine because they have the freedom to say that. But if it goes their way, they don't have to disagree with us because we won't be allowed to speak.
Barry, and certainly we see that every day, and it's not just the tamping down of freedom of speech, but also the freedom to assemble, the freedom of religion. These things are an attack every day by our government, and it goes without notice.
Yeah, well, you have to have a media that reports in on it, Jack, and that's why you're here today. So I really appreciate you coming back on. It has now been 6 minutes with Jack, so I'm going to have to let you go and get on to the show. But I really appreciate you coming on, Jack. I'll see you next week.
Thanks again, Barry.
You got it, my friend. Take care.
All right, 5 minutes with Jack turned into 6 minutes. That was a great talk by him, but sometimes he's a little bit of a downer, don't you think? I mean, I was looking for a little bit more upbeat this week, but he is right. He is right. When you think about it, we're moving away from what our founding fathers, I believe, really wanted. But I don't want to put words in their mouth. I just look at what the writings are. So with that, I'd like to thank Jack, and I'd also like to thank Eric Clambera for being here. Intern Sam is on vacation. Sam the intern. And I don't know if you guys noticed, but that intro pretty much went off without a hitch, huh? That intro goes all the way back to where I started in radio many, many years ago. That was Jay Beau Jones, you can hear him on 70s on 7. And I contacted him and said, hey, you want to do a couple voiceover intros for me? He said, sure, no problem. So he's made them up for me, and terrific. It was the first time I literally heard them 5 minutes before the show, 10 minutes before the show, and got it thrown on there. And Eric was able to find it inside that whole mess and bring it to life. So thank you, Eric. Not throwing any shade on Sam because he's doing a great job, but just saying the professionals at the boards right now. So with that, why don't we take a quick commercial break because we have to get our next guest on the line. He will be on the phone. So we're going to take a commercial break and pull up our next guest, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to All Politics Are Local. I'm your host, Barry D. And by the way, I think my my radio show theme song for my intro and my outro is going to be different every week now. We started with the AC/DC Shoot to Thrill, which was a good start since I hadn't been on the radio in over 30 years. But now we're going to have new ones every week. You're going to have to guess what they are. So with that, I would like to bring up our first guest. He is down in the Oxford area, and he brought to my attention, I got a contact from him the other day, and he's had a little problem down in Oxford with the Oxford Main Street First Fridays. So let's see, Mike Miele, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Barry.
Outstanding. So, Mike, why don't you tell me what's going down in Oxford?
We'll start with about a month or so ago, we had a committee meeting and we were discussing some outreaching and, reaching out to the community on different things, whether it be voter registration, candidates, and things like that.
Let me interrupt you real quick. Now, when you say committee meeting, explain what committee?
It's Area 19. It's Oxford Area Republicans.
Republican Committee. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So we decided to get involved with a Oxford Main Street. It's a thing they have every first Friday of the month in Oxford, which goes, I believe, somewhere April to December. Great time, a lot of family activities.
I love it. I've been there several times. If Chester County people, if you haven't been there, you ought to go down and see it. Oxford, that Main Street is the coolest little thing. It's like going back in time, isn't it, Mike?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Tonight we have grandkids out there with their bicycles for the 4th of July, all decorated. It's going to be a great time.
Fantastic. Go ahead.
So we applied to, as a vendor, to have a table.
That's the Republican Committee.
The Republican Committee, correct.
Mm-hmm.
Put our application in, gave them a certificate of insurance, gave them everything that they needed. And about a week and a half ago, I got a call from our chairman that said that we were denied a table. And I said, well, what do you mean we were denied? And he sent me a copy of the email, and I think I sent you a copy of the email, and pretty much said that if the Democrats are not going to have a party or have a table, that we were not able to have one, which I thought was a little crazy, kind of set me off a little bit. Made some phone calls, and our chairman reached out to Oxford and asked, questioned it, and he was, they kind of gave him a little bit of an attitude, saying, how dare you question our decision? So apparently they must have changed some bylaws within, I don't know, say the last month. We haven't figured out yet why we're still looking into it. So that's where we're at. So we were denied have a party. I have absentee ballots. I have voter registration, mail-in ballots. We had it in Spanish. We had it in English. We had a nice table set up, and they denied us to get out there.
Okay, so Mike, let me read a little bit of your letter that you did send to me. It says specifically, if a political party is applied to be a vendor to share their projects, programs, and or opportunities, the other party must also be present at the same first Friday in order for OMI to accept their application. Well, I have a couple problems with that. One, now they may have changed it. I mean, the world is not linear, right? Things change. Last year, there was a booth down there, and Roy Kofroth, who was running for sheriff, he was the Republican candidate, had a booth down there several times, 2 or 3 times. There were other Republican candidates down there. Judge candidates were also running, and there was no problem with that. Now, if somebody cried foul, I think the big thing that has to happen is they need to get a booth. But correct me if I'm wrong on this, but when they say the other party, right, it says the other party. I didn't know there were only 2 parties in Chester County. I understand there's
Good point.
Republicans, Democrats. What else is there? Libertarian, Green Party, Constitution.
Independents.
There's a ton of parties out there. So it's an all or none, or they're just showing favoritism to Democrats and Republicans, which, one, I find to be a problem in itself. 2, what you're saying is without one party giving permission, the other party has to say, "Mother, may I?" And if the other party doesn't say, you may, then you can't. So the Democrats or the Republicans, and I think this is wrong on both sides, okay? If the Democrats want to be there and the Republicans don't, why would the Democrats' voice be squelched? If they want to go and be active there, knock themselves out. This is a matter of
Absolutely.
the public getting to know the parties and what they stand for and who they stand for. And when you do that, you're limiting those abilities. And I find that repulsive.
It says, and we looked it up on their website, and, at the last page, it says, Oxford Main Street Incorporated does not discriminate based on sex, gender, political affiliation, religion affiliation, etc. kind of hard to believe that maybe they didn't get a chance to change that yet, but
maybe they didn't read their own.
About 2 days ago.
Yeah, maybe they didn't read their own rules. Maybe that is the problem. They don't know it, and I would ask that Oxford fix this, because you're doing a gross disservice to your own residents and the people in the surrounding area. The whole purpose of these First Fridays is that everybody can be there and represent themselves, no matter what it is. I mean, look, we certainly don't want something there like NAMBLA. Don't get me wrong, but
absolutely.
But if what they're doing isn't hurting anybody, and they're out there promoting their product, whatever their product is, and it's legal and not offensive and not completely adult-oriented, I don't know what the problem would be. And I would hope they would do that. And in fact, there's a number at the bottom of your rejection letter, and I think I'm going to contact them. I'm sure they have a website and an email. I'm going to contact them about coming on the show and talking about this themselves. And maybe you're missing something and maybe I'm missing something, but let's get to the bottom of this. What do you say?
I'm all for it, absolutely.
Mike, I appreciate you coming on the show, and we're gonna push this along and see exactly what happens. It sounds like you're about to cut the red wire before that bomb blows up, and so. And
yeah,
we're gonna follow up on this. The things you have to do on your lunch hour, right? We're gonna follow up on this and see where this goes, and let's see if we can get this cleaned up, because I'm sure this is just a simple mistake with Oxford Management Incorporated.
That's what we're hoping for.
You got it, Mike. I appreciate you being on here. It's people like you that give me a job. So thanks for being here. We'll talk soon, and we're going to jump to a commercial while we get our next guest on the line. Stick with us. And welcome back to All Politics Are Local with Barry D. Again, thanks to Mike Miele for coming on talking about Oxford. We're going to try and get a hold of the management company for that and see if we can't get that straightened out. Our next guest was actually on before, and he spoke about the EV charging wiring that was going to have to go in new construction or major construction in West Goshen Township. Basically, the point was you were going to have to put in the infrastructure, the circuit breakers or circuit breaker box if need be, for the EV vehicle that you don't own and may never own into these homes. Originally, it was supposed to be anytime you drew a permit for even a deck or any type of work like that, or roof, they were going to make you do that. That got backed off pretty quickly, and I don't know if Charlie had anything to do with that, but Charlie's just a guy that started coming to the meetings, and he did so and was shocked at what he was hearing that happens when you don't attend township meetings. And it's very important that you attend township meetings because of that very reason, because these are public meetings. The rules were set up that way so that the public knows exactly what's going on. So Charlie got a hold of me, and we had a great talk about this, and he's back to give us an update on what happened at the last meeting that just happened and where all that went. So why don't we get to that? Charlie, are you on the line with me?
Good morning, Barry. How are you?
Doing well, Charlie, and thank you for being such a superstar last week and bringing this to the public's attention. That's what we're here for. Why don't you give us an update on what's going on in West Goshen with the mandatory EV wiring?
Okay, so by the way, I love some AC/DC Thunderstruck next time you're thinking about songs.
We do have some more AC/DC coming up, brother, so you count
Awesome.
on that.
Awesome. So thanks for having me back. I can't thank you enough for last week's interview. We inspired many West Goshen residents.
Really?
Yes, last Tuesday's supervisors meeting. It's now showing on YouTube under, you can go to West Goshen Supervisors 7/2/2024. It'll pop up. It is a great display of civic engagement. And I credit you and your live show and podcast, All Politics Are Local, for making this happen. Why? because 40 people showed up in that room as opposed to 5.
Now,
Go
you said
ahead.
40, not 14, right? 40 people?
40 people showed up.
Oh, my God.
Mostly were motivated because they listened to your podcast. Now, I could have expected more, but the reaction I got when I explained what was going on, people would say, why didn't we know about this?
Right.
They would have been many more people in that meeting room, but you know what? They didn't believe this was a real thing. Not in our township, I hear. So it's quite interesting, but hopefully people stay in tune and more people will come. For the time being, though, here's what I would suggest. I would suggest everybody grab some popcorn and your teenagers and watch this EV charging station mandate discussion on the YouTube. Again, that would be West Goshen Supervisors. It'll pop right up. You will see what's in our residents' hearts and exactly how little our West Goshen Township Supervisor Chair, Ashley Gagne, cares or is even willing to listen to us.
Well, if I can interrupt you for a second, I'm about fairness. I was raised to be very fair. That's one of the things my father and mother really instilled in me. And anytime a situation like this comes up, as you may have heard in the last segment, I'm going to get a hold of Oxford management about this situation where, you have to get Mother May I from the other party, which is funny, Democrat and Republican, other party. There's other parties out there, and get their permission before you can show up. They have to want to show up. So if they don't want to show up for that event, they don't have to. In your case, I got a hold of Ashley, and I don't know if she goes by the Anglified Gagne or Gagne, which is the French version. I don't know what she does, so I don't want to massacre that. I do see she has a hyphen over it in her emails where she says she must respectfully decline when I invited her the first time. So it's Gagne, I guess. Anyway, I went back for clarification to see if she declined this week's show or for a specific issue. And then she asked me, she came back after 3 days and said she actually did see it 3 days ago. She just chose not to respond. So she asked me several questions. If I'm a West Goshen resident, I don't know what difference that makes because do anchormen for Channel 6 News have to live in a township to report on a car theft ring or anything like that? It's ridiculous. But very cordial. I was very nice to her and gave her information. She didn't know WCHE existed, apparently, so I told her it started in 1963, and it's a Westchester radio station that serves Westchester and the surrounding townships. And gave her a briefing. I answered all her questions. And so her response back to me after that, she said, I appreciate the offer to appear on your show, but I must respectfully decline. If you're interested in learning more about the EV ordinance, feel free to review the minutes from meetings during which it was discussed over the past several months. Now, it sounds to me like we can encapsulate that down to going right to the Cliff Notes, the very end, which is actually watching the video and seeing the conduct of both supervisors and residents, correct?
Yeah, and to, let's say, put aside the suspense, they voted 5-0 to push this thing through. But as far as showing up for your radio show, that's her choice, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't force anybody to come on. I can only give them the opportunity.
Right. So 2 examples of things that happened during that meeting, just to highlight. One resident who was at the meeting, Karen Took, had an afterthought on Chair Ashley Gagne, writing, she seemed to be missing, whether actual or on purpose, a very simple point. She seemed oddly in favor of the word choice until it came down to giving people a choice.
I guess it's choice on her terms.
And that's my point, and I think we covered that in our first show.
Yes.
So there was another remarkable person at this meeting. It was Andrew Husband, a school teacher, and he was the alternate planning commission member who voted in favor of this ordinance back in June. Then he said something to the effect, we will all own electric vehicles and we need to get started now. I'm voting for it. Again, where's the choice?
Well, it's interesting when over 90% of the world, probably 98% of the world, runs on petrol. So maybe there will be a move to that. I don't think it's going to happen in the next, decade. It's not going to happen. In fact, I just posted an article one of my listeners sent to me. It's on my Facebook page, WCHE, All Politics Are Local with Barry D. Shameless plug right there. It's an article that says that 50%, that's 50% of all EV owners will not buy a second one because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. So getting back to Mr. Husband. Yes.
He referred to me in this last meeting as the guy with hair on fire, alarming residents for no reason, or something to that effect. Barry, I'm near all bald. Watch it on the West Goshen video on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, people don't like things being out in the sunshine. As it's often been said, sunshine is the ultimate disinfectant. You need to have that information out there. When you're trying to slide things through on people, and look, it's very simple to do. Nature's lazy. Humans are lazy. I don't have to go to the meeting. They're always shocked at the end. Americans as a whole, we don't want to get involved until it's almost too late in many cases. So putting that news out there, especially as you're getting that close to the end, triggers people to actually do something because they know at the end they're going to lose whatever freedom it was, or at least they want their say in it. They want to be heard.
Yeah, but it makes you think, am I crazy? Facts, it's great quote, facts are persistent things. They said Noah was crazy, then the rain came, and all the fact checkers drowned. Well,
that's a truthism, right? And by the way, meteorologists can be wrong 95% of the time and still have jobs. Them and economists. So, so in the end, it went through. What was the final decision on the whole thing?
Well, the final decision was they voted 5-0 to force us to install empty conduits when 85% of us have no interest in buying electric vehicles. So for me, my takeaway is this is political expediency versus Jeffersonian-style governance on full display. And Barry, this is why your show is so important. We need you to keep expanding your broadcast, inform all Chester County residents, so there is some Jeffersonian engagement and the right things start to happen. So please keep up the good work. You rock.
Well, I really appreciate the compliments. My head's getting too big for my headphones right now. And by the way, this just in, I understand the next ordinance they're going to have is you need to take an insurance policy out on a 1972 Torino. Not because you own one, but because you might someday.
I'm going to follow that story, Barry.
Go ahead.
Okay. And don't forget, if anybody has any questions and want to reach me, I'm at savepafirst@gmail.com. That's savepA1st@gmail.com. And thanks again, Barry.
Charlie, you're a hero. We're stroking each other way too much on this thing. But listen, thanks. And anytime you have something coming up in West Goshen, we're counting on you to be there for us. And hopefully you've gotten enough people interested. They're going to start coming to those meetings and watch what's going on in their backyard. Thanks, Charlie. We're going to take a commercial break. We got to pay the bills, and we'll be back. And welcome back. It's Barry D. In the second half of All Politics Are Local, we are filling in the spaces between the commercials, and we are on to our third guest. Our third guest, the person with me here today, is a man named Rodney Simon. Rodney Simon is running for representative in the 155th District, and that covers up there in Euclid, Downingtown. What other areas, Rodney?
We have the Brandywine's part of Cowan and then the borough of Downingtown.
I hate people that have better radio voices than me. Anyway, back to me because it's all about me. Rodney is running for that on the Republican ticket. I have reached out to Danielle Friel-Otten, the incumbent, and asked her to come on. I have not yet had a response. I sent that out about, maybe a week ago.
but I've had nothing yet from her, but I'm sure she'll be coming on. So let's get started with this. Rodney, this is your first foray into running for an office?
This is my first time running for state office. I ran for school board for Downingtown.
Okay, so you did you won that position?
I did not. No, that was an unsuccessful run.
Okay,
but I did spend 6 months as an appointed board member.
Oh, somebody stepped down, or
yeah. So my area district guy stepped down 6 months early, and I was appointed to fill that term while I was running for that seat. And it gave me a lot of insight into kind of what it's like to be an elected official and how that really works out. So,
how bad were you bloodied up?
oh, it was the 2017 election. So if you know Chester County political history, that was a tough year.
Yes,
that was the beginning of the blue wave.
Yep.
And so yeah,
Democrats very successful after that.
Yeah, I mean, you got to give them credit. They saw the opportunity, and they made the effort, and they put in the time, and they were very successful. I think that our area, Chester County in particular, is in a position where we have that opportunity to really have a strong conversation. We just need to have shows like yours that are coming out and bringing local issues and local problems to the forefront, so that we recognize that there's more than just a presidential election.
That's an absolute.
Too many times we have radio shows that are awesome, they're entertaining, newspapers that are fun to read, but they're only talking about the president and the federal election. And there's so much that happens locally that we as constituents and citizens need to pay attention to. And your show is bringing that to the forefront, and thank you for that. That's really important.
Well, thanks. I'm blushing. Thank God I've got a face for radio. You're absolutely right about that, Rodney, and it needs to be done because the media isn't covering a lot of these things. So let's talk. Let's talk about your area, the 155th. You are looking to represent a very purple area. Is it a pretty good mix, Democrats and Republicans?
Yeah, we have a pretty good split whenever you look at registration. You're about 45% Republican, 47% Democrat, and then the rest is made up with independents. So, in 2016, 2015, the Republican registration was higher than the Democrat registration, but a lot of it has to do with this area is one that a lot of people are moving into. It's a great area. I mean, that's why I moved there. It was filled with opportunity and access to jobs and a beautiful scenery. I mean, it's just gorgeous. Every so often, hot air balloons come floating over the district. It's really a nice thing to see. And, it is an area that has changed a lot. And that gives us a lot of opportunity to talk to a lot of people and share our message of a more conservative kind of governance and a smaller governance instead of this big, huge, overbearing governance. And so I think we have a lot of opportunities in the 155th.
All right. So why don't we get to it? Why don't we talk about what we've basically got an idea of where you're at as far as your theory on where things should be. So why don't we talk about some of the prongs of what you may be dealing with? Let's talk about education, for example, right now. Where do you stand on education? Where do you stand on public schools versus private school versus charter schools versus Catholic schools?
Yep.
Blah, blah, blah. All homeschool. Tell me what you got going on there.
Yeah, so our campaign is based on creating opportunity for all. Like I said, that's why I came to the area, is because I was seeking better opportunities. And opportunities start with education. If you talk to anybody who's gotten anywhere, there's a huge chance that the reason they got there is because they had a quality education. They were able to learn and grow and then created something new. And that's how they got somewhere great. And so, we as citizens need to encourage that opportunity. And that's why I'm running for state office. I want parents to have the opportunity to choose the education that's right for their student. in our area and in the Downingtown School District, Downingtown Coatesville School District, there's a lot to offer from the public schools. However, a huge group of our population also send their kids to charter schools, they send their kids to private schools. And the reason is because they've found and they know that education is best for their student. The big difference between what I would do as a state representative and what our current administration and state representative does is I want to give you the opportunities. I want to create the guardrails so that we can say, okay, these are the things that we're looking for in education. These are what we want, and allow the parents to make that decision. Our current representative and current administration wants you to be on a monorail. They want you to be just going public education. That's the only opportunity. That's how it works. That's where it's going to happen. And that causes down the line difficulties that they are going to only solve by trying to increase money. That doesn't solve that. Here's an example. There's a family in my district who has a young son. Mm-hmm. And he was having some difficulty learning to read at the beginning. Okay, it's not uncommon, and so their thought process was, we'll send him to the public school because that's where he's going to get the most help. And sure enough, he did. He get a lot of help. There was 2 doctorates in reading education. There was a couple people with masters that were working with him on different types of reading. There was the tutor that was taking him out of class and helping him out. And then COVID happened, and all of a sudden, he wasn't in class anymore. But they were still trying to do that work every month. You're still having the meeting with the parents.
So the work is still going on.
Yeah,
the instruction is still.
It was still happening, but the issue was that the student wasn't making a connection with the tutor that was in the school. It's not really necessarily a fault of the school district, but they were putting a lot of effort, they were putting a lot of money, they were putting a lot of energy into that student. And the parents decided, look, we've got to make a change. And they thankfully had the opportunity, they had the wherewithal, the financial income to find a tutor. And that tutor was able to work with that boy and find the connection, make the connection, and took him from falling behind to being on grade level with reading. And that's what I'm trying to bring to Harrisburg, is that it's important that we find the right solutions for the parents. And as a politician, as a state rep, I'm not going to dictate to you, well, the only way you can find that solution is if you go to the public school. You know what I mean? I want to try and help all of our community be able to reach those solutions that actually get the results that you're looking for.
Fair enough. Let's jump just a little bit on that. So when you're talking about opportunities and opportunities in education, because I kind of go crazy. I find myself yelling at the TV when I hear the candidates talking. Jack Smith, and I apologize if there's a candidate named Jack Smith right now. Jack Smith believes in good education. Would you please, could anybody find me a candidate that's campaigning on, I want bad education, right? Everyone wants good education, but you are at least outlining what you're talking about. Opportunities to go to a charter school or whatever type of opportunity, or a Catholic school, whatever it is, to private school, whatever. And that's important. Now, I will ask before we jump to something else in opportunities, where's the money at right now in Pennsylvania as far as that goes to jump from one type of school to another? Is it out there to be able to go over to a charter school? How does it work?
Yeah, so currently we have funding from we have legislation and funding from Harrisburg that works in a couple different ways. And our current representative and our current administration want to change that dramatically. What happened is we had a court case, and in that court case, the judge decided that we needed to be more careful about how we funded education. And her comment is that
her being.
Sorry, I don't have her name right off the top.
The judge?
Yeah, the judge.
Okay.
But her comment is that we need thorough and efficient system of public education. Okay? So what has happened is our current administration has said, oh, well, that means public schools. That means the public education. We need to thoroughly fund that. And so the budget is tied up right now. It was supposed to have been passed on June 30th. Unfortunately, they did not meet that deadline. And so part of the reason they didn't meet the budget deadline is because they're fighting over how schools are going to be funded. And they're taking a lot of COVID money and they're passing it around, and they're upping a lot of budgets for school districts because they're only worried about the amount of money the school districts, the public school districts, are getting. They're also going to take some of that funding that is currently in the system for things like charter schools, and that is a great opportunity for students, especially in school districts where maybe the school district isn't as safe. Maybe they just don't have the teachers or the education that's working for them. So they're able to go to these public charters and they're able to get education there. And they're trying to take a lot of that money out of there and put it in just to the public schools. There's another example, is that there's a thing called the EITC. Now what the EITC is that you as a taxpayer can take a certain amount of the money in your taxes. You can donate that to an EITC. It doesn't have to be a private school. It could be a public school. A great example in Downingtown. But what happens is that's a tax break, and so there's money allocated for that. And our current representative and our current administration wants to claw that money back so that the people do not have the ability to choose where some of that funding is going into, which school it's going to, and how it's being spent. They only want it to go through the state-approved monorail. That's where the money goes. This is how we're spending it. And those are the things that I would like to try to change. The problem is this. That budget is going to be passed before I would ever even get elected.
Right.
So we've got to use your show. We've got to take this opportunity and start to pay attention and make sure that we know where that money is going to go, because that decision is going to be made before I ever would get in office.
Got it. Hey, listen, let's take a quick break so we can run through the rest of this. We're going to take a 2-minute break, get some bills paid. We're going to be back with Rodney Simon, Republican candidate for the 155th District in Chester County.
This is Tommy Green from the 1993 National League champion Phillies. And here's the pitch. BCWSA water and sewer customers, if you have a new and improved option to pay your bill that's convenient, reliable, and secure. Powered by Invoice Cloud, you can pay your bill 24/7 online, pay by text or phone, or sign up for AutoPay to avoid fees for late or missed payments. Visit bcwsa.net to sign up or for more info. That's bcwsa.net. BCWSA, prove it.
And
Did you know that HIV is still a problem?
You can close out with the government needs to make an environment for citizens.
Did you know that when HIV is undetectable, it is also
about choice. It's about
we have a hard stop at 12.
1% of new HIV cases in the U.S. occur among those ages 13 to 24.
So we're gonna do that business.
Get the facts
Give that
about
about
HIV and
3
get
minutes,
tested.
3 or 4 minutes, and then jump into the other one.
Okay?
Because then we're done at right about what? Right at noon. Yeah.
We go straight up to noon. We don't stop at 5 till.
No, we can go right up to noon. So
Yeah,
sometimes we can
we're
push a little
flexible.
bit past that. Yeah.
Yeah, we do I do a news update after that, but we're flexible.
Yeah. So if we need to wrap something up, I can give you an extra minute or two.
Yeah.
He'll tell us. He'll give us a 2.
Two,
and
yeah.
we need to
We got like 45 seconds.
Okay. I will say, Rodney, you sound good. Okay, let me put that a different way. This is going way better than I thought it was going to go. How's that?
Well, don't start that now. This trail's going to unravel.
Your talking points are good. You're not stumbling. You're clear and concise. That's what I need out of you. Oh my guess, I need to be clear. Whoever it is. Because we don't have that much time, we need to get this information.
10 seconds.
Chester County at 95.3 FM and 1520 AM and
I do need about
at
30 seconds to thank everybody at the end of the show. And I'm back. It's Barry D with All Politics Are Local. We are speaking with Rodney Simon, Republican candidate for the 155th District, which takes place up in the Euclid, Downingtown, Brandywines area. Okay, we're going to jump over a little bit now that we've spoken about the schooling. Let's talk about business. With business, what's going on? Pennsylvania seems to be losing business. It's moving out of the area. What's going on? What's your intent there? What's your beliefs? What would you like to do?
Well, again, going back to opportunity, we've got to be creating an environment where businesses can be created, and the businesses that we have here in Pennsylvania can grow. It solves so many downstream problems whenever you're creating business opportunities for people. And part of the problem is that we have so many regulations, piled on so many regulations, that it encumbers businesses from growing, from starting, and it's a challenge to get businesses to come to our area because of that. Here's an example. Whenever I worked for the Housing Authority, we had funding from the feds, we had funding from the state, we had local funding. And one of the examples is that the sidewalk outside, the Fed was worried that sidewalk didn't have a great slope, so that somebody in a wheelchair or somebody who was handicapped would walk on an unlevel surface, okay? Mm-hmm. And so they said, listen, you can have a sidewalk, but it can't be any greater than 2% slope, because that would be too unlevel for somebody who has a handicap. Now, we also got money from the state and from the city, and the city said, no, our focus, our concern is that sidewalk in the winter doesn't build up with water and turn to ice, and then people would fall.
Needs to have drainage.
Yeah, so it's got to shut off there. So it can't be perfectly flat. So you've got to have some slope there, but the minimum slope that you're allowed to have is 2%. Well, those two numbers came together. In the world of concrete, which is where I spent most of my time in commercial construction, concrete cures like a piece of toast. It evaporates the moisture and it curls up like a toast in a toaster. The corners come up and it's never going to be perfectly flat ever again.
Right.
And so what happens is that sidewalk was very difficult for that contractor to get it at perfectly 2%. And so you end up tearing out a bunch of that concrete and doing it all over again, and that's cost and money, and it makes it very difficult to keep the value in that, okay? The reason is they both had good ideas. They both had good reasons for making that legislation. But when you just pile that on and don't allow for any kind of cure to that problem, you end up with an inspector out there inspecting every single corner of that concrete to make sure it's exactly 2%, because if it's not, it's got to come out, we've got to start over. Those are added costs. They're added burdens to business that if we were more careful about the regulations that we're creating, and we weren't creating these conflicting regulations, it would be better for the society in total, and we'd be able to use our energy and our efforts to create more business, create more opportunities. And in the world of in construction, that's one example. I'm sure that if we opened up the phones, you would have tons of people who could call in with similar things, where it's good ideas, but they're conflicting so much that it makes it difficult and impossible to grow and make business.
It's funny you say that about conflicting ideas, and then we're going to have to move on in a little bit here. The conflicting, you find that all the time in different agencies, these different departments, the EPA, DEP, all these. You can't match all of them. So once you're in compliance with one, you're out of compliance with the other. Now you're getting a fine. You're like, but we have to go with this. Yeah, but we're this agency. And it becomes a real problem. And there's nobody there to put it together. And the feds don't talk to the states don't talk to the county don't talk to the local municipality. They look at the code book. It's a real problem there. And I would hope that you would be able to help push some common sense in there. Go, listen, we need to fix this. Somehow we need to come up with a way to do this. I don't know if it's a committee, I don't know if it's something, but this needs to be reviewed by some engineers, and we need to clean this up and send letters out and say we need to do this.
Yeah, and see, the reason we get there, the problem is how we get there is we get there by a administration and elected officials who say, I'm going to make sure that this is how we do things, okay? And that's why I say we've got people who are running a monorail and not creating guardrails. We've got to say, look, we need access across here, but I'm not going to dictate every single piece of how that sidewalk goes in.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's what our issue is. That's why we're in the situation we're in.
Got it. We're going to run out of time, so I hate to ask you this one, but I have to ask it of everybody who's running on this, because this is always the hotbed issue, and you being the Republican, I need to talk to you about women's rights, reproductive rights, freedom to choose or not. Tell me where you stand on that. What's your view on that? You only got a couple minutes, so you're going to have to make sure you keep this concise.
So this is the way I see it. In general, I would say probably the majority of women who find themselves in a situation where they're at the point where they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to have an abortion. It wasn't because they went out and were like, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get pregnant and then I'm going to have an abortion. That's not how they got there.
Right.
That's not what they were intending. Something happened, okay? There was a mistake or something made along that process, and then they got there, okay? So that is a challenge that we've got to work through. I could sit here and say, look, we're going to make it illegal. We're going to throw everybody in jail who gives an abortion, who performs an abortion, every woman who wants an abortion. But that's not going to solve the problem. The problem that we're trying to resolve is whether or not we think that life is important or life isn't important. I personally believe that life is critically important. And so what I want to do as a representative is help women have better choices, okay? And from the beginning, help them have better choices and better opportunity in career or whatever, so they don't get to that point where they're have the devastating decision, do I have an abortion or not have an abortion? Our current administration and our current representative does not want you to have that choice. They don't want you to have that ability. They only want you to have one option. That option is abortion. They don't want any state funding for crisis pregnancy centers. They want any funding for adoption. All of that stuff, none of that is a choice that you can have as a woman. The other problem is this. We've got to get men involved again. Listen, you can't.
That's an absolute.
You can't just plant a seed and walk away.
But that's what's happening.
That's exactly what's happening. And the administration and the governance that we have right now has taken literally the weight of the world, and they've placed it on the shoulders of the women and put all the pressure on the woman so that when she gets to that point, she's desperate. And they're like, this is your option. Here you go. Here's the pill. Here's the surgery. Whatever that case may be, this is how it ends. And they've made that decision for them.
So what you're saying is that women have choices to make, and you're not somebody that's going to stand in their way, other than you want to make sure that they know all their options. You want to make sure of that.
It's a battle of hearts and minds. We've got to win the battle of hearts and minds.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where we're at with that thing as far as that goes. So I understand that you're not somebody that's going to say we're going to ban abortion. You're not interested in that type of thing. You're interested in educating people and hoping because they're in that position, they have to make the decision for themselves that they can make the best decision, whatever it is for them.
Yeah, we got to help them in the crisis where they're at. That's absolutely.
Okay.
And we've got to get ahead of it too. We can't wait till the crisis is at the end. We've got to help them out at the beginning. That's why opportunity is important. Absolutely.
Keep it from happening.
Absolutely.
You got it. Hey, I got to tell you, this has been great having you on. I'm sure Danielle Freelot will be on soon. Like I said, she has been invited. I've invited all Democrats and all Republicans and Kennedy. No, I haven't invited Kennedy. He's a busy man. But I'd love to have him on. But I'm looking forward to talking with every candidate that affects Chester County. And Dwayne Milne was the first, and now you're the second one on. So thank you so much, Rodney Simon, for being here, running for representative of the 155th. Give him a look, and you may want to vote for this guy. On that, I think it's about time for us to wrap up the show. I'd like to make my thank yous to Eric Clambera for being here. He's running the boards right now, and I greatly appreciate it, and that's why we got our first voiceover. I'd like to thank Jay Beau Jones from 70s on 7 Sirius for making my first intro voiceover, and also I'd like to mention Sam the intern, who is out on vacation for the next 2 weeks. God bless him. I think that's great. The lovely and more than capable Donna. She is the one that has brought me on here, Donna Saul. And so far, she hasn't regretted it. I'd like to thank the expanded listenership. We were just going over the numbers, and we are exploding actually here. So be sure to share my podcast with others and listen to me live from 11 till noon every Friday. And by the way, I'm going to, because I'm a person that changes once in a while, I'd like to say those that don't like my show don't listen, but I've changed that to if you don't like my show, listen. It gives me better ratings anyway, and those that do like it, again, be sure to share it. I'm Barry D for All Politics with Local, and I'll talk to you guys next week.